It's no surprise that Armored Core 6 is a highly anticipated game from Software, especially considering the success of all their recent launches over the past 10 plus years. And I had a chance to go out to California to play. No, I'm kidding. I did not get to go to California, but there were a lot of Soulsborne YouTubers who did, and they recorded their own gameplay and shared their initial thoughts on Armored Core 6. And while I personally didn't get a hands-on experience, I was able to watch a good amount of gameplay, and this is my thoughts and impressions on Armored Core 6 so far. Keep in mind that all of the gameplay presented is from Chapter 1 and is from the first 11 missions. Sort of. I say sort of because, from my understanding, certain missions were not allowed to be shown, possibly to avoid spoilers or something to that effect. Nonetheless, the gameplay we did get to see looks very promising. It looks fast-paced, refined, and truly conveys the sense of scale, which are all good things we want to see in a mech game, considering the variety of each mission, which will likely require a variety of weapons and loadouts. It wouldn't be a mech game without a ton of options for weapons and armor, each offering their own specific traits and benefits. What we know so far is there are 3 main weapon categories: kinetic, energy, and explosive, all with their own unique attributes, all specializing in dealing either direct or impact damage, with impact damage essentially being stun damage. Each weapon favors close, medium, or long-range combat, some dealing AoE and damage over time, and all with varied accuracies, attack speeds, and strategies. The same goes for Armored Core 6's classes. There are 4 main classes showcased in the first chapter: Bipedal, which is your all-around jack-of-all-trades class; Reverse Jointed, which favors speed and mobility; Tetrapod, which specializes in aerial combat and is the only class that can hover in the air; and the Tank type, which, of course, is the defensive class specializing in ground combat and high equipment load. You'll use a combination of all of these weapon types and mech classes to create a unique character suited for you and tailored to how you approach each mission. And the UI of Armored Core 6, while it looks complicated, becomes very intuitive and exciting, considering you'll have to manage all of the different gauges, whether it's all of your different weapon gauges, your energy management, stun buildup on your enemies or yourself, and so on. The resource management in this game is just as fast-paced as the actual combat itself. Veterans of the Souls series will be familiar with this concept, but think of it as a more souped-up version of what we're used to, which should be an exciting thing to hear if you've been following From Software games these past 10 years. The first chapter of this game gives players a taste of how expansive Armored Core 6's combat really is, and if you would like an in-depth explanation of mech classes, weapons, and combat, visit Boomstick Gaming, because he goes over all of that in great detail in his video linked in the description below. All in all, if you're a big fan of fast-paced combat that's fun, intuitive, and requires a lot of attention in resource management and strategy, Armored Core 6 should speak to you because it offers all of that in one totally refined package. My first impression of Armored Core 6's missions is that it offers a variety of choice for the player to decide how they want to approach each individual mission, while also giving them the opportunity to try out new classes to let the player hone in on their preferred playstyle that they're trying to master. One very promising thing that I heard about Armored Core 6 is the fact that certain missions are going to favor a specific approach. Some missions are going to require your mech to be quick and agile, while other missions are going to require you to be tanky. You can see a good example here during this mission, which seems to favor tetrapods that can stay in the air as long as possible. We see here the tetrapod is a prime class to keep you suspended in the air to allow you to hit the points you need while conserving your energy, thus making the entire mission that much easier. So if you've been playing a tank class, which is best suited for more traditional ground combat, you'll probably find that it's more difficult to complete this mission. Now, will it be impossible? I don't think so. And it'll also be interesting to see how tank players approach this mission and seeing how creative the community gets. From what I gather, If you min-max your mech, you can complete a mission in about 1 minute. Keep in mind that that really depends on how quickly you want to avoid everything and just get to the end. There's a ranking system every single time you complete a mission, with S rank being the top that you can earn. And so for all you completionists out there, I'm sure you'll have fun custom tailoring a mech for each mission to ensure you get the best rank possible. Now don't let that 1 minute mission fool you, because Armored Core 6 also offers a lot of missions that can be pretty lengthy, and from my understanding that comes towards the later part of the game. But before I get too ahead of myself, as I mentioned before, these first 11 missions are confined within one chapter, and there will be a total of 5 chapters in all for about 50 to 60 hours of gameplay. Once you complete the game and move on to New Game Plus, you'll have access to new missions depending on the choices you make during your first playthrough. This kind of reminds me of the Nier franchise, where the more you complete playthroughs, the more content and endings you unlock, and so it begs the question, how many playthroughs can a player complete before they exhaust all of the content in Armored Core 6? It's going to be pretty interesting to see once the game comes out. Player choice matters in this game. About halfway through the game, you're going to be presented with options that influence the ending of your playthrough. And let's just be honest, it wouldn't be a FromSoft game if there weren't multiple endings. And it'll be interesting to find out exactly how unique each ending is compared to the other, and how that influences each individual New Game Plus. All in all, I believe that despite Armored Core only having about 50 to 60 hours of gameplay content, there's still going to be a ton of replayability, and I wouldn't be surprised if players put double, triple, or even 4 times the amount of hours into this game. Overall, From Software's decision to make players try new classes and playstyles is something that I actually enjoy, because in previous From Software titles, specifically within the Soulsborne series, players, and yes, even myself, tend to stick to the playstyle that's always worked for them. Dex and katanas have always been a very popular build, and a lot of players have used it for good reason. But in terms of variety, you can see how picking your own class and setting your own stats begin to pigeonhole you into one specific playstyle for the rest of the game. Now there are exceptions like respeccing and creating new characters, but with Armored Core 6, players will be able to experience multiple classes and multiple playstyles all in one playthrough without having to worry about respeccing or even starting the game over. Now you do have to spend resources to have access to those different classes and weapons, and you'll first have to complete missions to get those resources, but all in all, I like the idea that certain missions require certain playstyles, and from what I've seen so far, players will have a plethora of choices in their loadouts, so it'll be interesting to see the different builds the community comes up with. Let's move on to customization. Armored Core 6 really lives up to the mech genre and sets an example to other first-party titles when it comes to this regard. One of the features that I most enjoy is the fact that you can truly customize your mech to look however you want. Armored Core 6 offers plenty of customization options to make your mech look unique and stand out in the battlefield. In recent years, cosmetics have typically been locked behind some type of paywall, but Armored Core 6 opens the floodgates and allows for a lot of different types of textures and colors for your weapons and armor. Icons as well, in case you're a YouTuber like myself who wants to put a little shameless plug in their videos. And all of this is good for the Armored Core 6 community, as it allows people to express themselves and share their unique mechs, and lets you draw inspiration from all the different types of customization options that you'll see. And really, this level of customization always serves as kind of a game within a game, because you can spend just as many hours customizing your mech as you will completing missions. It's confirmed that Armored Core 6 will have 1v1 and 3v3 PvP multiplayer. I put my trust in From Software when it comes to multiplayer, and Armored Core 6, when you look at it from a PvE perspective, looks really fun, so I imagine multiplayer will be the same, if not better. I hope. Now, what is common in a lot of gameplay that you'll see is a fixed camera system that locks onto your enemies. However, Armored Core 6 has confirmed that there is a soft lock targeting system and a free aim that will be a little bit more difficult to use, but can provide benefits to more seasoned players. It seems like one of the pitfalls of auto-locking onto your targets is that it forces the player to use certain fixed angles, which can become very readable. And these approaches, once the skill ceiling is raised, pose a threat of being easily predictable and easily defeatable, which in turn forces players to adjust their playstyle and use alternative methods of approach, i.e. the soft lock on and free aim. I believe single player is going to be largely approached using lock on, and I don't think players will have a need or a desire to want to experiment with other types of combat approaches. Now, of course, I can be wrong, and I'm sure that in the single player there's going to be times where the free aim or soft lock will be much more beneficial, but it is also a firm belief of mine that players are going to use lock on the majority of their playthrough, especially considering that using soft lock kind of puts the player in a tricky situation because of the controller configuration. From my understanding, it's a little tricky to move, boost, and fire weapons when you're not automatically targeting onto your enemy, but it's a give and take. It only makes sense that there's a downside and an upside for using either. It may contain elements, and I'm sure it will have callouts to old Soulsborne games, but all in all, this is a mech genre game. This is From Software prior to gaining the popularity that Dark Souls gave them. This is Armored Core. Now, if that dissuades you from purchasing the game, I can totally understand that, but I would rather dissuade you from buying a game than to falsely encourage you by giving you the pretense that this is going to be Elden Ring, but with mechs. It will be an open environment, sure, but it will not be an open, interconnected, expansive world. Each mission will place the player in a different type of scenario, a different situation with different scenery and aesthetics, and I don't think that this is a bad thing. Using this approach allows From Software to experiment with a lot of different types of environments, and it doesn't chain them to a fence by making them worry about how each piece of this world is going to interconnect. Again, I wouldn't put it past them to have level design in Armored Core 6 that references previous missions or even future missions, but I also wouldn't go so far to say that each individual mission directly interconnects with other mission areas. I don't think this is going to be the case for Armored Core 6, but personally, that's not necessarily a deal breaker for me. A lot of the games in the past have ran on this model, and it's only video games within the past, I want to say 10 or 15 years, that developers have become more conscious about creating expansive connected open world areas. It makes sense to me why they chose to go the quote old school unquote approach, because this is a old school game franchise, just with new school learnings, and to me, that's going to be a great blend. It's my speculation that players will see Dark Souls, Elden Ring, Bloodborne inspiration and similarities in Armored Core 6's boss fights, and I'm sure there's going to be combat with other mechs that feel very similar to these types of boss fights from the Soulsborne franchise. However, what pleased me is to see that there are boss fights that also take homage from other genres, and in this particular case, the bullet hell genre. You can see the merging of different video game genres and how FromSoft has taken their own spin on it and created something new that seems truly fun and challenging and pretty refreshing. I can't wait to see all the different types of boss fights that exist within Armored Core 6, because the three-dimensional combat is truly something refreshed that we haven't seen from them in recent years, and it's interesting to see the learnings that they've gathered from the previous titles they've launched within the past 10 years, and I want to see how they take their experience and apply it to this omnidirectional style of combat. All in all, seeing this type of gameplay has left me more excited about the game now more than ever. And with a little less than a month to go before it's released, there's a lot of different types of content that I can't wait to see from people and from the community, and even the types of content that I can produce as well for you all to enjoy. If you made it this far, thank you for showing your support, and if you're new, maybe you'll consider subscribing for Soulsborne and Armored Core 6 gameplay tutorials and tips and tricks. My name is Snake Eyes with 1UP Gaming. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Let's see if we can get to 50. I'll be back soon with some more content. But until then, take care.